I exercised my right to remain silent, and I was coerced, and I was threatened, and I was cajoled. And if you don't talk to us, we're going to put you in handcuffs. And if you don't talk to us, we're going to put you in a cell. And if you don't talk to us when we go down to Brooklyn this afternoon, what do I know about going to Brooklyn this afternoon? I'm going to Hicksville this afternoon. When we go to Brooklyn this afternoon, we'll tell the judge that you wouldn't cooperate with us, and he won't release you. What do I know about even being released? Have I ever been through this in my whole life? At 68 years old, a pristine record? I held to my position. I have a right to be silent. Also, I have a right to counsel. They took away my briefcase and all of my papers, and they had no right to do that. There was nothing wrong with my briefcase. It just had my legal papers and my notes about Bruiser Ken and about the conversations with the FBI, the Fraudulent Bureau of Investigations. And when I would reach for my hat, they would intervene. And then when I'd reach for my mittens, they would intervene. They separated me from my property, even my clothing. So it ended up that they saw that I wasn't going to capitulate, and they did take me to a cell. They did put me in handcuffs, and they did take me to a cell. Worst looking thing you ever saw. It had a toilet in it. It had 2 metal benches in it, and the floor was dirt. And by now it's about 10 a.m., 10:10, 10:30, 11, 11:15, and I asked to make a telephone call. And you know what, folks? I had to ask 55 times before I was allowed, not allowed, before I could make my telephone call. They took that privilege away from me. They even came and tried, well, you just can't call anybody. They came to the cell and said, you can't just call anybody. You've got to tell us who it is you're calling them and why you're calling them. And after 55 requests around 12:30, I made my telephone call, and I made it to Dr. Carlin. And I told her, I said, you remember that nice man? I had played the recording of Kwiatkowski to her over the phone. That nice man from the FBI who was going to help us, and we were all so happy about this. He ambushed us. He arrested us. And of course she was devastated, as we all were. And so very quickly I told her the scene, and to call people, and to call Brad Sachs in White Plains, and to call other people. And she got on the job, and she called Carl Lancesser, and she called Carby Cash, and she called Rich Fenton, and she called Rich Einhorn, and the movement began to run and roll. And all of these people called down in Brooklyn. We will pick up on that end of it as I fill in what was happening in Uniondale. I kept asking about my husband, who was 78 years old, who was 149 pounds, and is 6'1", and I was mighty worried about my husband. But my husband was snatched from me, and I didn't know whether he was all right or not. What they had done to Franklyn was to force him to make a statement, and they had forced him to be fingerprinted. Franklyn was never done anything wrong in his whole life, and has gone to church practically every Sunday of his whole life, and who fought for his country, was being fingerprinted and mugshot. I was in the cell. I was dehydrated. My lips were beginning to split up, and it was around 12:30, and we hadn't had anything to eat and anything to drink. And I was demanding my telephone call. And then I saw Franklyn come out, as I was in a cell, I saw Franklyn come out of another door. And when Franklyn saw his wife in a cell, he completely broke down. He began to cry, he began to shiver, he began to shake. And he said, why was a warrant for our arrest signed? I'm a veteran. I get socked in the jaw. I'm 78 years old, and he just falls all to pieces, and you cannot wonder. And I have to witness this, the disintegration of my husband in the hands of these brutes. First, we're bruised by another brute, Kenneth H, Mildworm, and now more brutes. We're the ones who haven't done anything wrong. He's the one who broke all the laws and committed the crime, and he's free out there to beat up more of you public that come into the Uniondale house, the Uniondale courthouse. Around about 1:30, they say, we're going to Brooklyn now. They've finally given up trying to coerce me to make a statement, coerce me to be fingerprinted, and coerce me to be photographed. They have taken my pristine 68-year-old record. No laws ever broken, and they have ruined it. And so they bring in a chain, and they put the chain and lock it. And then they lock handcuffs to the chain, and then they lock my wrists to the chain. And then they force me into a compact car. Kwiatkowski says, sit in the middle. Chained up, I'm trying to squeeze into the middle of this compact car back seat. And then he says, no, sit over here. And I say, can't compact car back seat. And then he says, no, sit over here. And I say, can't you ever get anything right the first time? And then this terrible person, his name is Peter Grupa, Grupe or Grupa, G-R-U-P-A or G-R-U-P-E. And he verbally abuses me the whole time, and I'm there. And then there's a hatchet-faced woman named Jill. Terrible, terrible face. It's a face that would wake you up in the night, in a nightmare. And she was abusive. And she's the one who kept taking my papers away from me, and all of my possessions away from me. Back up. In the cell, I said, I am cold. I want my coat. You have no right to keep my coat. And I want my mittens. You have no right to keep my mittens. And you have no right to keep my hat. Finally, I was reunited with the clothing that I walked in there and was ambushed. And so we drove to Brooklyn. Kwiatkowski drove too fast. He was endangering my health and my safety. He was way over the speed limit. Kwiatkowski told me that he was down in Brooklyn yesterday, and yet he didn't know the first thing, how to get out of the courthouse and get onto the road to Brooklyn, the Meadowbrook, and down to the southern state. He didn't know how to do it. Here I am in a car with 3 goons, 3 thugs, 2 males and a female. They drive up to the Brooklyn courthouse, down in the bowels, another dungeon, and they tell the man at the gate they have a prisoner. I'm a prisoner? What did I do to become a prisoner? Do you know, as yet, I don't know what the charges are against me. And that's got to disqualify the whole arrest. A person has to be told what he's charged with before he's arrested. So we go into more cells and more dungeons and more poor people, probably equally abused. And I'm locked up in a cell again. This chain is around my coat. The temperature in that room, it's all underground, totally airless. The temperature in there must be 85. This coat is a very heavy, warm winter coat. I asked for the coat to be removed. The other people who brought me in take off their coats, but not me. And I asked and asked and asked and asked. And that coat was left on me. And I had to go to the bathroom, and I asked to go to the bathroom. And by now, this fierce-faced Jill woman is joined by a Brooklyn counterpart. So I go to the bathroom, and they stay there in the room with me. And my mother always taught me that you defecated and urinated in private, never in front of anybody. And I was so inhibited that the body functions wouldn't work. And I still got this coat off. And it took me 2 minutes, and they stood there and watched it and never lent a hand to try to get this coat out from under this chain. So, the bathroom functions were entirely unperformed, and I had to go back with all of that waste in my body for more abuse. And then I'm taken upstairs, and it's a very narrow, and there's cells up there, and there's no room in the cells for me, probably because of more violation of rights by the fraudulent Bureau of Investigation. And a man named Grossman comes and talks to me and says, I've been appointed your lawyer. And I said, thank you, but I do not give my consent as yet. And we're standing in this hall, and there's two Pinkertons going back and forth, and there's prisoners coming in and out, and there's lawyers going back and forth, and court personnel going back and forth, and this hall is this wide. And they are on my feet, and they are pushing me against the wall, and I said, don't you have a room where we can sit and discuss this? Why do we have to do it out here in this hall with all of these people coming and going, pushing and shoving us? Finally, they took me into the courtroom, which is spacious. In all my years of monitoring courts, I never saw a courtroom that large nor that elaborate. It had something like 50 overstuffed chairs behind the judge. What was that all about? And then they changed me to a jury chair, a chair in the jury box. And this Peter Grupe doesn't know how, none of them knows what they're doing. None of them knows how to lock their handcuffs and unlock the cuffs. They all fumble and bumble and stumble. And this guy, Peter, he put the handcuff on a chair, a jury chair. And eventually a man had to come out with a pair of pliers this long because he messed up the handcuffs and cut the handcuffs in two and ruin them. That's only government property. And count up the salaries. The government salaries that are being paid for this nonsense just to cover up Bruiser Ken. Police cover-up. Just count the salaries. 2 on Franklyn, 3 on Glendora, 2 cars to Brooklyn. And when Franklyn saw that chain around my waist, he flinched. And then came the coercion. Again, you got to be fingerprinted. Why do I have to be fingerprinted? I haven't done anything wrong. You have to give a statement. You have to have your picture taken. And by the way, Kwiatkowski did take my picture against my will in the cell up in Uniondale. And then the pressure began about statement, fingerprint, you know, about the right to remain silent. They just violate your constitutional rights left and right and your statutory rights left and right. And then they put pressure on Franklyn. Oh, Glennie, if you don't do it, you'll never get out of here tonight, and I will have to go home without you. And Franklyn must have said that to me 6 times. And they put the pressure on Franklyn. Franklyn, who is in a weakened condition, who is 78 years old, who's 149 pounds, who hasn't eaten all day and hasn't had anything to drink all day. In addition to that, I have severe congestion in my head from a cold, in the nose and in the throat. And so they continue the pressure on me and the intimidation and saying that you're not going to get home tonight, you're going to stay in jail. On a person who hasn't done anything wrong. And so finally, when Franklyn puts more pressure on me, then Franklyn gets an attorney. He's assigned to an attorney, and he takes the attorney. And the attorney is a very appealing person. Her name is Murray. Jean Ann. Jeananne, one word, I believe. She's small, she's diminutive, but she's a fighter. She's blonde and she's blue-eyed. And she's a very interesting person. And she put pressure on me about 6 times. Finally, against my will. I said, okay, I'll be fingerprinted. And so we go downstairs to be fingerprinted, and this savage, Peter Grupe, G-R-U-P-E or G-R-U-P-A, starts verbally abusing me. And I turned around and I said, no fingerprints. And I went upstairs. Or I started upstairs. Of course, I'm in handcuffs. And so they went up and they got rid of Peter. And they got rid of the hatchet-faced Jill. And they gave us Bob Aldrich, who was the agent who had been handling Franklyn all this time. And they gave us the Brooklyn woman agent. And then Kwiatkowski, and we went down again. And it's a terrible thing to be fingerprinted. And he took so long to do it. He must have had to do it 8 times. They never did anything right the first time. And then they took a picture, a mugshot. The statement they really didn't do. They said, what color are your eyes? They're brown. And Aldrich says, I think they're hazel. And I said, they are not hazel, they are brown. And about how much you weigh, and the date of birth they didn't even ask because they stole that from Franklyn's report. 68 years old. I am 78 years old, he is. It's now 5:15. I'm put back in the cell with 2 other women, and in the cell right next, juxtaposed, adjacent to it, is the men's cell, and there's 7 or 8 men in there, and I have to listen to a man. our handcuffs are taken off of us. It's all such a sham. When you go in the courtroom, you can't have handcuffs. They have to be taken off of you. And we stood before the judge. Jean Ann Murray was there, Franklyn was there, Glendora was there, and Grossman, that lawyer, was there. And the Assistant United States Attorney named Edgardo Ramos was there. At the desk, within a foot of us, was a woman named Lori Gershon, and she is the law secretary for the judge, who is Robert Levy. At 3:30 in the afternoon, we finally saw the complaint. We finally saw that what we were charged with. And it is a whole bunch of lies by Kwiatkowski and Kenneth H. Mildworm that we attacked him. Now you expect this of the police. Do police lie? Yes. And so this was all a cover-up. This was all police cover-up. This was all RICO. Collusion, the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, and the Pinkerton Detective Agency. All collusion. That's enough. That's RICO. That's all you need for RICO. And I believe Robert Levy, who was the judge, who had signed this warrant of arrest without ever hearing from us, without ever hearing our side, and on total lies. He was had, he was taken. Can this happen in the United States of America, folks? In your country? It did! Now we're getting close to the 29-minute mark. I will have to continue the saga on the next program, which unfortunately may not even be seen in your cable TV area. It may be on another cable system. But you and I will have to part right now as we go on to the saga on another videotape and on another program. The judge was Robert Levy. He had a lot of black hair. He was very mild-mannered, and he was very soft-spoken. And I think he was concerned about our ages. Glendora 68 and Franklyn 78. And there was talk about the bond, and he asked the government, that would be the Assistant U.S. Attorney, if they wanted to detain us, and the answer was no. Glendora told Judge Robert Levy that we had been ambushed, that we had been lied to, that we had been threatened, that we had been frightened, and then there came the matter of signing the bond to release us on our own recognizance, and there was talk about the bond. I said it was fraudulent for me to sign a bond for $5,000 because I never could produce the money, that I was in former paupers, $480 a month Social Security, and that Social Security isn't taxable. And he said, no, it isn't. And but he kept saying that the government couldn't collect it, and that they and that it was all right to sign it, even though I didn't have the money to back it up. And so there I was. So I signed it. And I put my name on it, I put my address, 1395 New York Avenue, but then paper was taken away from me before I put my town, Huntington Station. And then Franklyn signed one, I guess. And then he asked me, then the Murray lawyer for Franklyn said that she wanted to waive pretrial hearing, and I said that I wasn't sure about that, and he asked me if I wanted to, and I said I reserved. And now I certainly don't. The congestion in the head acted up rather seriously then, and I had to leave the bench, and I had to go, turn my back, and I had to cough up this congestion. And in addition to that, there was this severe headache, and that's very bad because it's a pulsation and a throbbing of blood through those vessels, and with increased pressure, one of those vessels could break, and what is that? That is a stroke. So the attorney, the United States attorney, said that there was the matter that Glendora shouldn't go into should stay away from all United States courthouses, district courthouses, and Judge Robert Levy says, well, Glendora has business in the courts. She has to go into the United States district courthouse. And I added that Rule 77 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure said that the courthouses, the United States District Court, had to be open at all times to conduct the business of the public. I believe that is all that happened before the judge. But the law clerk of the judge, Lori Gershon, and Judge Robert Levy did seem seriously concerned about what had been done to us and about our ages. So then the goons, that would be Jill Doe, she told me her name, but they had taken away my pad and my pen, and there was no need of that. They had stolen those from me. They had stolen 20 bucks from me. They had stolen my key from me. They had stolen my briefcase. They had stolen my papers. There was no need of that. No need of that at all. And then they started with paper a list of the things that were in my briefcase and that were being returned to me. And so I was sitting in one of the soft chairs when Jill brought this to me. And there was no way that I could go through it in my lap. It would have gone all over the floor. So I said, I need a table. So I made for a table, and she started to stop me, and I